Hey people, it's Steel Gamer with hopefully what is going to be my last video talking about DLSS 4. I've broken this video down into three parts. The reality of DLSS 4, YouTubers that troll, and make it make sense. And even though these three subject matters are tied together, they are separate. So let me begin by first explaining the reality of DLSS 4 and what the hell is going on. NVIDIA fucked the release of this up completely, okay? Between the app that's broken for a lot of people, the misinformation that NVIDIA isn't correcting and allowing YouTubers to go on and just spout off, and the official statement that's on their website that doesn't even freaking make any sense. This is a mess. So first, let me begin by going over and showing you this official statement on the NVIDIA support forum. Okay, this is on the NVIDIA official forum, okay, enabling DLSS overrides in the app. And I have here highlighted where the problem area is. It says, I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to break it down and reword it so you understand what that actually says compared to what people think it says. And this is, again, people who don't know how to read, which, again, I'll be discussing in YouTubers that troll. All right, so in games and apps that have yet to update to DLSS 4 or add native support for DLSS multi-frame generation, NVIDIA app users can activate DLSS 4 overrides to enhance image quality on all GeForce RTX GPUs. Unlock DLSS multi-frame generation for GeForce RTX 50 series GPUs and more. Okay, that statement makes no sense, and it's actually not true, because what the statement actually reads is games and apps that don't have DLSS 4 in them or have native support for the multi-frame, that's or, so those are two separate things. The people who have the app can activate DLSS 4, they can activate the options inside the app to enhance image quality on games that don't have DLSS in them just because you have an RTX GPU. Okay, 20, 30 series cards cannot use DLSS 4, period. No matter what anybody tries to tell you, and no matter what anybody says, you are not using DLSS 4 at all with a 20 or 30 series card. The multi-frame generation and the smooth motion are only specific to 50 series cards. So I'm now only going to focus on the model presets, the super resolution, and the frame generation. Now, for those of you who want to argue with me, this is why I said I'm going to go over YouTubers that are trolling. So, if you want to try to argue that's not what that says, you're just a troll and I'm not going to handle this. Because, first of all, if every single person that's going around stating this, blog posts, no matter what you read on the net, they all say the exact same thing. You can now, NVIDIA has released drivers and an app that allow you to use DLSS in games that don't have it. That is screwed up. You can read this two different ways, and NVIDIA has not corrected this. NVIDIA needs to come out and say, this only works with games that already only have DLSS in them. We've upgraded the DLSS that are in those games to 4 with this driver. The point here is that saying in games and apps that have yet to be updated is saying games and apps that don't have this yet. Okay? It's saying they haven't updated to DLSS 4, but there still is not an argument. It literally says in games and apps that have yet to update to DLSS 4. That does not state upgrade from DLSS 3 to DLSS 4. That just point blank says unless the games that don't have DLSS 4 in them can now do this through this app, and the driver and the graphics card force that option into the game. Now, whether or not you want to argue with that doesn't matter. The fact of the matter, that's exactly what this says. So, I want to get back to YouTubers that troll. Because YouTubers that troll will say, well, look at these videos are doing this, this, and this, and we're using the DLSS swapper. Okay, I'm going to explain to you how this works as a reality. I'm going to bring your attention back to something called ENB. ENB is a mod that was originally created to make games have color enhancements through modified DirectX files. So those are the driver files for DirectX. Now, modifying the driver files all you want won't matter. ENB had a menu that connected the drivers together so you could actually alter, change, and reconfigure the options in those driver files. So what you have here is a menu that works with the drivers. The same holds true for DLSS 4. It doesn't matter whether NVIDIA put out the driver to it. It doesn't matter whether the GPU can pick up that driver. You still need a menu. You still need menus to actually change or alter or reconfigure what is in those driver files. That is how it works. And unless the game itself has a menu in it that changes DLSS or has a DLSS menu in it, you ain't changing anything, even if you use the swapper. And this where it comes down to is the swapper and the app read what it's programmed to read. That does not mean what it's reading is working. There is a difference here. So if I program something to read something in a notepad file, it's reading in the notepad file. But I can't use that program to edit the notepad file. Now, if you want to argue that, NVIDIA Inspector does that, fine. Change the driver, change whatever you want in the driver all you want. You still need a menu in the game to look at and change those options. Sorry, I just sneezed, so if you heard that, I apologize. I tried to break that out. So anyway, what's happening here is DLSS 4 only works in very specific games. Okay? It only works in Alan Wake 2. It's supposed to work in Silent Hill 2, but that remains to be seen. It works in Stalker. Sorry. It works in, it works in the new Stalker game. And it's supposed to work, in like Cyberpunk 2077. Okay. Now, frame generation is supposed to be only for 40 and 50 series cards. And so what's happening here is that because a lot of people can't use the app, it's broken. YouTubers wind up trolling everybody because they know people want to use DLSS 4, so they basically make these videos stating, here, let's show you how to edit files and doing everything else. None of that matters. Editing files so you can activate the overrides or utilize or click on the overrides in the NVIDIA app doesn't change a damn thing because you still don't have the menu in the game to change anything. In Silent Hill 2, there is an option in the game menu itself that the developers put in that says FSR 3.1. That is an AMD option only, but because it puts it in the game, it now puts an additional option in there called frame generation. So when you activate FSR 3.1 in the game's menu from Silent Hill 2, it ungrays frame generation. So you can turn on frame generation. NVIDIA app and the drivers that NVIDIA released do not turn on these options in the game. The game menu has to have these things themselves. And that is why this statement is completely misleading and it's wrong. In games and apps that have yet to update to DLSS 4, that shouldn't be saying that. It says, this should say, this only works for games that already have DLSS 3 something in them. And this will not work for 20 or 30 series cards. Now let me explain why it doesn't work for 20 or 30 series cards. DLSS 4 is programmed specifically for 40 and 50 series cards, no matter what anybody tries to tell you. Now, eventually, you may be able to use super resolution on the 20 and 30 series cards, but as it stands now, make it make sense. I'll get to that in a second, but I want to go back to, right now, editing files and doing all this other shit will not do anything to get a menu to show up in the game so you can use it. So even if you were to use DLSS swap, even if you use the swapper, you can take you can take the files and put them in the directory of the game. You can even take ray reconstruction files and put them in the game and open up the swapper. The swapper will read the file that's in the game and show you it's in the menu, because that's what the swapper is designed to do. That does not activate it in the game unless you have a menu in the game that activates it. That brings me to the point on ray reconstruction. Ray reconstruction is a passive effect, meaning it takes ray tracing and basically corrects it. However, if ray tracing is not on, the ray reconstruction doesn't do anything. And so people are basically under the assumption that they can use DLSS swapper in games that don't have DLSS in them, and then somehow now the game has DLSS in them, you just don't have a way to control it. No, you can't even turn the damn thing on. You can take this test. Do this test. Go find the ray reconstruction files and go find the updated DLSS 4 file, which is 3.10.02. Put them in the directory of the game, of any game that doesn't even have DLSS in it to begin with, and then open the swapper. You will see the swapper picks up ray reconstruction as well as the DLSS 4. However, once you open the game, those files don't work because they just sit there. You have no menu to activate those files. So you can put anything in the game directory, but unless you get the game to read it, it's not going to work. Now, that brings me to the point, and again, YouTubers that troll, they'll all say, well, this case and that case. All right, look, that brings me to the point on make it make sense. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody shows. DLSS in general and trying to get super resolution makes no sense on how it works, and here is why. In a nutshell, what you're doing with DLSS 4 is if you have a 4K monitor, in order to get additional frames out of that and or a better resolution, aka super resolution, you have to launch the game, lower the resolution of the game in the menu, and then turn on these options to re-upscale the game to the resolution you just lowered it from. That makes no sense. You're basically saying, okay, I have a 4K monitor, and instead of running the game in 4K, I'm going to lower the game to 1920 by 1080, and then use these options to rescale it up to 4K, which doesn't do anything because you're just running the game at 4K. Why do you need to lower the resolution to go back up to 4K when you just run the game at 4K? Running the game at 4K and then dropping the resolution and then bringing it back up to 4K is the exact same thing. You have not changed anything. You cannot improve the quality of a picture by lowering the resolution of a native screen on a native game to lower it, then using these options to go back up to get the picture to look better. That doesn't work. It never happened, and it doesn't make any sense. Okay? As far as frame generation goes, unless you can add the frames itself into the 4K, which you can't, then you're not making more FPS. What you're doing is you're lowering the game and then running it on something that has a higher output to give the illusion that you've done it. Now, that's not fake frames. What I'm saying here is people are acting like they got a big jump in frame rate because they lowered the resolution on the game. Of course you're going to get a bigger frame rate. You don't need DLSS 4 to do that. I can lower the game on a 4K monitor down to 1920 by 1080 or even 1440p, and the game will run much better and much faster. It may not look good, but that's about it. Now, if you're trying to make the game look good, you can't, because the maximum output on a 4K monitor is 4K. So saying you're going to lower it down to 480 or 320 or whatever you're doing, if you lower it below 4K, you have to then use the options to bring it back up to 4K. Just run the game in 4K. And that same principle applies to 1440p, 1920 by 1080. You are not getting a game to run at a higher resolution than your monitor can output, period. Okay? So if you run a game, if you have a 1440p monitor, you cannot run that game or even replicate 4K, because the only way you can do that is if the monitor itself has 4K. The maximum resolution output you are making is 1440p, period. You are not making it look better than 1440p. I don't know where people are getting that from, because again, dropping the resolution down from 4K to 1920 by 1080 and then using these options to bring it back up to 4K is the equivalency of having a monitor that can only do 1440p. You make the game 1080 and then you use the options to bring it back up to 1440. You can't go past the monitor's current hardware resolution. It doesn't work. You can't do it, and it will never look any better. It's not true. So the whole thing is backwards. In order for this stuff to actually work, you would have to have your current resolution go in at a more quality rate, or higher quality picture. So in other words, in order for me to make 4K better, there has to be levels of 4K, 4K1, 4K2, 4K3. So you can still run 4K, you're just making a better version of 4K. Same thing with 1440. So NVIDIA has this shit going backwards to then go back up. You can't, that doesn't do anything. Again, you have to go forward. You have to take these current options and apply them to your current resolution to make them better. And that doesn't work. So again, the reality of DLSS 4 is it's not put out right, and it's completely misleading, and people have no idea what they're talking about, and NVIDIA hasn't corrected anybody. YouTubers that troll know this, so they're making videos to clickbait people into doing things that they know won't work, and people are desperate to do this. And then the YouTubers that troll and the people actually say, well, I got this running, and you're not doing anything, because it doesn't make any sense, because everything is backwards. It has to go forward, not backward. So that's basically it, and I hope this clears up, and I don't want to be talking about this anymore, because it's fucking ridiculous. That's it. So, till then, Teal Gamer signing out. Have a good day or night, wherever you are.